here at the Carlo Park, it just makes me feel so, so bloody good, and I'm so glad that I'm a coach and that I got into it right back in 1973. The year gets put into perspective when you come down here, you're mixing with kids. They couldn't care less about what's going on at Manly. They're only interested in enjoying themselves, and that's how it should be. And they've made me feel real good.
Let's hear you one more time.
They say it's all about state against state, mate against mate. The State of Origin series is one of Australia's greatest sporting occasions. It's a fiercely patriotic event where the best league players in the country represent their home state. It's an all-Australian affair. That is until Queensland chose Graham Lowe as their coach.
It was a big controversial appointment because, and rightly so, especially for people in Queensland, because they love the State of Origin team. It was Queensland's inception, the State of Origin, well, the whole concept, and they're very, very proud of the State of Origin team. And Arthur Beetson, who is he's my favourite all-time player, and he's a living legend as far as I'm concerned. He was the current coach, and he'd led the team to the first initial victory, and he is State of Origin, and for Arthur to be replaced by a New Zealander was probably a little difficult for most people to understand and to accept.
I've nothing against Graham Lowe. He's a good coach. He's certainly a good bloke and that, but I suppose really where the bottom line is he's not a Queenslander, so, but that's their privilege.
I won't go to the game Wednesday night. I'll be here to watch it because Arthur Beetson's not coaching them.
It's the same if a Chinaman went over and run the All Blacks.
As game one of the three-match series got underway, it was also difficult to accept that Queensland could beat a star-studded New South Wales lineup.
While we were aware that we certainly didn't have the individual brilliance right across the board that New South Wales believed they had, and everybody saw that they had, I felt that that we could beat them in other ways. While we may not have the individuals, we had to try and work and come up with a better team. Our individuals, their bag of tricks was certainly smaller than New South Wales, but the thing is, it had a zip in it, and if we yanked hard enough, we might be able to open it up wider than what the Joe public thought.
Graham put the emphasis on doing the little things right, on pressuring New South Wales with tough defence and isolating the runners who would be supporting that individual flair of the Manly maestro, Cliff Lyons.
Little tip kick, the big chase is plenty of pressure.
They really had an opportunity there, New South Wales.
The players aren't dumb. They know, they can read the papers. They know that in some cases they're up against, possibly the best bloke in the world in that particular position. But the thing is, you should never be scared of anything like that. And if you approach it properly, if you approach it in a positive manner, and with confidence, you can win. That's a game is not about individual versus individual. It's about teamwork.
An injury to Gary Belcher gave a chance to the Broncos fullback Paul Hoff, a newcomer who needed some low motivation.
Hoff comes at him. Good cover by Hoff.
Paul Hoff was a newcomer into the team, and also a newcomer to that level of football. The first couple of days of training, I called him aside at every opportunity I got, and just tried to, firstly, the most important thing was to let him know that he was really wanted in the team. The main thing with Paul was he's such a reserved sort of a fellow. He plays the game a little bit too much for his support rather than taking the initiative and going on his own. And I think once we'd convinced him to do that, he was one of the sensations of the series.
Elias, short ball for Gaia, gets a good pass away. Ettinghausen, he's over the 22, uses the kick, and again Paul Hoff rises to the occasion. Enormous pressure for the young fullback from Queensland. Willie Kahn passing tackle there by Ian Roberts. Lewis now. Hasler around the bootlaces.
They were just firing their big guns at us one after another, and I think not only to our surprise but to their surprise they got no return. We had a call that I initially named tempo, and the call tempo meant that if I sent the message out tempo, doesn't matter how tired anyone was, doesn't matter what, they had to trust me and respond to it, and they just had to lift their tempo. No matter what, the tempo had to be lifted. Well, we worked on that all week, and just before we left the dressing room, I went outside and let Wally have a couple of words to the team on his own, and I since found out that Wally actually said, forget that word tempo, it's Queensland, and our call then was Queensland.
Jackson, dummy half, looks to kick.
Whenever we applied Queensland, the pressure took its toll on New South Wales, and somehow, I don't know, we found our second win.
Steve Jackson, he puts his toe to it. Come down pretty hard, Joe, and there's the element.
There we see Graham Lowe in the stand. He probably looks more nervous than anyone talking to Tosser Turner, the manager there, or listening to Tosser Turner. He'd be pretty happy to see this go over from the boot of Mal Meninga.
My Otahu College logic puts a second win down to a reward. You can never get a second win unless you've absolutely applied yourself in every way possible. And then, I don't know if it's the bloke upstairs or whoever, but for some reason and somehow, you get a lift and you kick on again. And that's what happened to us.
Yes, he does. He's bending over in some pain. Here's Lewis now. Lewis has got some support. Lewis holds it up. Mal Meninga. Can he get there, big
Can he get there? Fair dinkum. How would you like to be the one trying to stop him? I was just grateful he was on my side for a change. That Lewis-Meninga combination is one of the most formidable ever in rugby league, and gee, it was a privilege to coach them, even if it was only for 3 weeks.
Rampant over the Maroons. Oh, listen to the crowd. Don't they love those two? Lewis and Meninga, the nemesis.
By this time, the tension was almost too much. I couldn't sit in the stand any longer amongst those screaming fans. I just had to get down and be closer to the action. I decided to go down to the sideline and try and act super cool. Mind you, Tim Sheens wasn't having it too easy either.
Queensland now. Holding on. Elias to the right for Stewart. On to Alexander. Floats it to Daly. Daly's kicks a grubber and a beauty.
The try that Daly got was a brilliant individual try and very hard to guard against. You put it down to one thing, individual brilliance. Individual brilliance is just something that some players are blessed with, and when they turn it on, it's very difficult to guard against.
Connor probably hasn't kicked a great deal this season, won't have a greater pressure kick in many a day than this one.
Michael O'Connor then had the chance to ruin the night for us. There was a lot of pressure on him, and I was thinking to myself, Michael O'Connor, if you kick this goal, fair dinkum, mate.
I've seen you miss easier ones from Manly. You better not do it.
20 metres out. No, he hasn't given it enough.
Thankfully he didn't.
New South Wales 4.
But the match wasn't over. There was further drama to come.
Meninga kicks off the very last passage of play. The siren sounds. The origin, the first for the new series. A penalty has been given at the halfway.
Well, when I realised that Mel had kicked the ball dead, the referee had awarded a penalty to New South Wales, and I was out on the field. I'd run out there, and I was just so embarrassed. Being a professional coach, you're supposed to be able to remain cool under pressure, but I was everything but cool, and I looked around and I just felt like everyone in the stadium was looking at me because I made a spectacle of myself, and you know, by the time they got me back over to the sideline, I just couldn't bear to watch the last kick, and I think it was Alexander, I think it was, lined up to try and kick it from halfway after the full-time hooter had gone. The relief when it didn't go over, and I think Wally or somebody just caught it and ran it up and took the tackle, and the game was all over. I think it was probably, said, it's one of the best feelings that I've ever had. It was just absolutely unbelievable. The feeling was just absolutely unbelievable. It was amazing because so many things flashed back through my mind. That first game, I nearly wasn't involved because I can remember back to February when I was laying in the hospital bed, and the management from Queensland came down to see me, and they said, listen, Graham, there's no pressure on you to remain as coach, or it's totally up to you. And the specialist had actually said to me they wanted me to take 6 months off work. But I decided to keep going and you know, to be involved with the State of Origin. Well, I'm just so glad that I did, because nothing would ever be able to replace the feeling that I got and the kick that I got out of that involvement, especially that first game. Don't run too hard, because you've got to get down to the beach and back.
After the first match, Graham returned to his Manly club side in Sydney, facing the players he had opposed as Queensland coach.
So I knew accepting the job would mean my own players would be in the opposing side, or a number of them would, and that in itself was a bit of a concern. But I didn't think it would be too much of a worry. I thought, oh well, you know, it is only a game, and even though I knew the State of Origin was highly competitive, I didn't really anticipate the worry that was actually there when it came around.
Knowing how he operates here at Manly, it was sort of put me in an uncomfortable situation, because you know, I couldn't stop thinking, well, he's going to be doing the same, if not more, with this Queensland State of Origin side. So it made me very nervous. The
remarks and the competitiveness amongst basically Martin Bella and myself, who were with Queensland, towards Michael and you know, Ian Roberts, Desi and Cliffy, who were in the other side, we became more and more competitive.
I know the impact Graham has on players, and that sort of series where he's just the players are together for probably 6 weeks, Graham's the ideal coach to have in that, because all the coach can do is motivate a side. I mean, that's the cream of the rugby league football, you know, of the players in the competition. And there's nothing at that level. There's nothing a coach can teach players anymore. It's just motivation and trying to coordinate the players amongst themselves. I knew, look, as soon as I found out Graham was the coach of the Queensland side, we were behind the 8 ball straight away.
The media had condemned the New South Wales performance after the first game. As for my Queenslanders, win, lose or draw, we'd planned to keep them away from the hype of the Sydney clash for as long as possible.
He's not a coat and tie coach. He likes to get with the players. The camaraderie is always.
We didn't come down to Sydney until the Monday, so we did that for a couple of reasons. One of the main ones was to remove our players from the Sydney environment, because otherwise they would just be reading continually about what New South Wales was going to do to them, and that in itself, again, that I thought the first game was a classic. The second game, you know, turned out to be one of the best State of Origins ever.
Defence fantastic from New South Wales. They're up on the Maroons straight away tonight. This man, Willie Kahn, gets very, very involved. He'll go in looking for the ball all night. Now it goes to Larson. Larson goes up. Big crash tackling down to the turn.
The New South Wales defence in the first, you know, quarter probably of that game, or certainly the first 10 minutes or so, was just unbelievable, and it seemed to be made even more ferocious just by the conditions. The crowd was baying for our blood. I loved it. It was great. I just loved it there, and it seemed to just inspire the New South Wales team. But they were getting no, you know, like we were still hanging in there, much to their surprise.
Giant New South Wales second row Mark Geyer was a man on a mission that night, and he certainly rattled the cage of more than one of our players with his smashing defence.
Gets over on top, Hancock, and stopped it with into Geyer. What talk about a blue wall? Bang!
I had the feeling right from the very first few tackles that were made that he was sailing very, very close to the wind. And as it turned out, a couple of incidents he was involved in could have been a lot nastier than what they actually ended up being, but it involved me in controversy after the game, and it also involved me in something that that I'm not to this day pleased about.
That drama would unfold later in the game. Meanwhile, New South Wales started to put Queensland on the rack.
The rain seemed worse than ever, and Wally got everyone behind the post. We sent a quick message out just to try and attack, strike back immediately. Wally was certainly inspiring the players as only Wally can behind the post, and we managed to actually get straight back on track again.
10 metres out now. Back for Langer. Conditions absolutely atrocious. Quickly across the line to Huff. Huff looks at that. Khan! That's a try! Queensland, they've struck back. Willie Khan has scored. That's his first try in State of Origin football.
Coming up to half-time, tempers were fraying, and a Mark Guy tackle on Steve Walters started a good old push and shove that certainly whet the crowd's appetite for the second half, especially after Wally made sure Queensland had the final say.
Lewis again says something to Gaia. They push and shove.
The most important thing we had to do then was settle everyone down. Emotion is a big weapon if you use it the right way, but it can also be a destructive force against what you're trying to achieve. I said, listen fellas, we've just got to put all that behind us now, and we can come back and we can still win this game, but we've got to keep our emotions in check. And doesn't matter what happens, we just can't afford to get anyone either sent in the sin bin or sent off. What we really have to do is try and hit New South Wales even harder, and I mean hit them in defence harder, and just try and rattle them even more than what we were doing at that stage.
Claim to come off.
Unfortunately, though, as the second half unfolded, yet another incident involving Mark Geyer rattled everyone and caused all sorts of repercussions.
Hoff. Tempers are fraying. Oh, Jackson's gone in. So it's Coyne. Bella's in there. And the State of Origin has erupted again.
I believe that if Mark Geyer had connected with Paul Hoff, Paul without doubt would have been put out of the game. I don't condone what he did in any way, but I will always be ashamed of the way that I acted after the game, because I think I acted in an unprofessional way, and I allowed myself to get carried away with the emotion of the whole thing.
One thing that overshadowed the game, and that was a lunatic running around thinking he was playing 10 years ago when you could get away with whatever you wanted.
Mark Geyer would later receive a 6-week suspension for the incident.
The ball out, only 10 metres. Gary Larson came up with the football. Referees ruled that he lost it in the tackle.
With 24 minutes to go and a win against the feed, Queensland dealt up their best possible reply, thanks to Dale Shearer.
South Wales turning back, enormous pressure at the moment, but for how long can they? Blindside for Langer. Lewis gets the pass away. There's the try for Dale Shearer. Shearer scores for Queensland.
Once we were in front 12-8, we obviously sent a couple of messages out to try and hang on, and we also used the call Queensland, tried to lift everyone up, but New South Wales, I think they were using New South Wales at the same time.
The try line is only 3 metres away. Elias for Stewart. Stewart, a long pass out. McGaw's got it down. It's a try. We're back square. It's locked up again, the Origin. 12 points all. John Cartwright. What a sensational pass.
I watched Michael right from the time the try was scored, and I watched how he acted, and from the way he walked up to receive the ball, the way he walked back to place the ball down, I had absolutely no doubt whatsoever he was going to kick it. I was trying to pray against it and blow and goodness knows what, but I had no doubt whatsoever that Michael would kick it, and as it turned out, it was one of the great kicks of the season and won them the game.
Manly making their way out.
4 days later, Manly and Lowe turned out against Illawarra in the Sunday match of the day. Manly were dealt a hiding, but their coach could feel more than the loss of 2 Winfield Cup points coming on.
I'd previously had a clot in January 1990 in my left leg, and I could just feel the pain and just the swelling, the heat and whatnot that was becoming apparent in my right leg. I had a feeling that another clot was forming. I should have immediately turned around and gone back, but we went through the game. They put the cleaners through us.
Ian Russell. Stepping right through. Russell is putting players on side. Skippolini's there. Skippolini chased by O'Connor. O'Connor, will he know?
Coming back on the bus was just mass depression, and with everybody. I went for a checkup on the Monday morning, and they rushed me straight into hospital again and diagnosed another clot. It was just, I thought the world had caved in. Anyhow, as it turned out, the specialist, he had a good talk to me, and he said that he felt confident they could stabilise it all. They could get me in a condition where I could leave the hospital. He made me recover mentally, and he gave me something to look forward to, and he said, why wouldn't you be able to go up to Queensland? Why wouldn't you want to do it? He said, I just want to see your face when we beat you, because obviously he's a New South Welshman. He said, I want to see you sitting up in that stand when we beat you. So he gave me something to look forward to, and as it turned out, they took me off the drip at midnight on Sunday night, and at 9 o'clock on Monday morning I was in the cab on the way up to Brisbane to join the camp again. Wally had taken over, and I was on a walking stick at the time because I could hardly walk, but Wally just had those blokes ticking over like clockwork. Everyone had pulled together. Everything had been absolutely perfect, and Wally had led them at training, and Tosser, the manager, had obviously, being the leader of the group as he is, he's our leader. He'd made sure everything was done right, and I knew that we were just ready.
The New South Wales PR machine had worked the Tooheys Blues into an underdog position for the third match. The Maroons had the Lang Park crowd behind them, but it was New South Wales who drew first blood.
That little kick from Fittler, bouncing ball through the chasers, come a chance! Oh, what about this? What about this? Oh, what a dream start for the Blues! What a dream!
Blindside rush.
Obviously it wasn't a dream start for us, so Wally's Queensland call went out, and everyone shifted up a gear as we tried to strike back.
Gillespie rides into the ground. Langer now to the right. Cut out ball. Lewis. Meninga. Now it's Paul Hoff. Hoff inside the pen. He's over. Hoff grabs a well-deserved try. Well, Darryl was
coaching the State of Origin side. One of the things that you're faced with is that you know, obviously there's some of your own players on the opposition side, and it's not marbles we're playing, and you do have to do what you can to try and nullify you know, the opposition. Well, Michael O'Connor, I saw him as a real danger in that last game, and he was going to be playing centre and marking Mel Meninga. Mel had also been in very, very good form, but Mel's a fair income giant, and I can recall a number of times saying to Mel, well, listen mate, it's no good being that big if you can't use your size to get some sort of advantage. So Mel said, what are you saying? I said, well, if you manage to get hold of Michael, make sure he knows you've got hold of him. Obviously I didn't mean any harm to Michael, but as it turned out, their first clash resulted in Michael getting a broken nose. I had to face Michael, who couldn't train. He looked like he'd been run over by a bus. His nose was spread all over his face, and both of his eyes were shut. He said that when his kids saw him, they screamed in horror. They thought he'd brought a mask home. If I was ever going to have doubts over being a State of Origin coach, it would have happened then, because you know, Michael is captain of Manly. He's a close personal friend of mine. Mel's a close friend of mine as well, and here I was, seemingly responsible for Michael's looks changing, but it all turned out okay anyway.
Coming up to the end of the first half, our pressure play was working real good.
And when Ricky Stewart missed a kick, one of our guys was looming up and the try was on.
Here comes the try. Hancock! Michael Hancock scores the second Queensland try. 8 points to 4.
I felt the game was there for us to take, but we had to forget all about the scoreline and just go out and try and win the second half. Just put it back to 0-0 and just go and try and win the second half and be as cold and as ruthless as what we could possibly be.
Well, they've got some movers, and they are going forward at the moment on the last tackle. Greg Alexander chips into apron space. He'll get this back. Yes, he does, and it's 6 again.
6 to go. Alexander gets it onto Elias. Elias now only 12 metres out.
However, early in the second half, Michael O'Connor went about upstaging us and trying to spoil our bloody party again. And to make matters worse, his Manly teammate Martin Bella must have gone up to the referee and in front row's language said, "Excuse me, sir, I don't agree with that decision." The referee replied, "You're looking tired, Martin. Have a spell for 10 minutes." I think that's how the conversation would have gone anyhow.
Try movement started.
Meninga is arguing, Lewis is arguing. Bella's got 10.
And then, as if to show they were dirty on me for coaching Queensland, another Manly man rubbed salt on the wounds with a typical Des Hasler touchdown.
Hasler, he's inside the 22. They won't get him. Yes, they will. Is it a double movement?
Yeah, I reckon it was. Even though I've got Queensland eyes, I certainly thought it was a double movement.
A try for Des Hasler. Blue power.
I could never return to Manly's Brookvale Oval. Geez, I'd be shouting for a year if we didn't pull something out of the bag. And then, after a fantastic passing spell, the bloke who came up with the goods was super sub Dale Shearer.
Colossus gets away to Linger. A long floated out for Shearer. Shearer heading for the line. Yes, Shearer's there. Unbelievable football. Can you believe this state of origin? One side scores and the other one comes back. Oh boy, 12-all.
Well, that's Queensland. There must be 8 or 10 passes involved in that movement. It looked like breaking down on a number of occasions.
Then it was all up to Mel Meninga to try and win the game for us.
Mel Meninga had certainly been inconsistent in his goal kicking throughout the series. I can recall being with him on the morning of the game down at Lang Park, and I was really worried, and I know Mel was also. Feeding him, he was kicking like a little old lady. That's what his kicks were like. He looked anything but a goal kicker. And Mel has been a great kicker throughout his career, and I was worried, and I certainly didn't come away from that training session with any confidence, and neither did Mel. He went through his routine, he took a deep breath and said a couple of words to himself, and those words were probably echoed by every other Queenslander sitting on the ground, and I know I certainly said a few.
5 metres in for touch, just out on the junction line, 12 or 23 metres.
And he kicked it. Didn't look a very stylish kick, but it went over. That's all that counts.
At this stage, I didn't know if I could last the last few moments. I was also worried about Kevin Walters. He was sitting on the bench and he'd been there all game and I hadn't put him on even as an interchange, and I felt terrible about it. So the moment the game was over, he was the first bloke I went up to and just said, "Listen, mate, I'm sorry. It's just the way it goes."
Easily the best series in Origin history. They take back the State of Origin shield. But has there really been a winner tonight? I think both these states and all the players it represented can take a giant side.
Without any doubt, it was the highlight of my career. This State of Origin win, being involved with it. And I think the circumstances of it, my appointment initially, the controversy that it surrounded it, the drama of the first 2 games, my illness that I got in the last game, all combined in various ways to just make it, it was a very, very dramatic event and something that well, I just can't, I can't recall anything ever being anything like it. It was unbelievable. Look, I had a walking stick at the time, and I'd fair dinkum not been able to walk 20 metres until till that full-time hooter went. And then I felt like I could have run for miles.
And Captain Wally Lewis summed up the feeling of the entire Queensland camp.
You've only got to have a look at his courage to get out of bed and come back up here. I mean, common sense would indicate that he should have stayed in the hospital and looked after himself, but the bloke's determination and courage rubbed off on all of the players, and I think that was displayed out there tonight. It's a strange thing. About 6 months ago, when Graham Lowe was announced coach of Queensland, there were howls of protest left, right and centre. Yet I reckon if you went out in the street at the moment, you wouldn't get one word of disapproval about Lowe. He's a magnificent coach, he's a tremendous bloke, and he's part of Queensland Rugby League for as long as he wants to be.
I, hobbled around somehow and going around with my walking stick and hearing, I know it sounds like a big noting, I'm not trying to big note at all, but hearing the Queensland crowd call my name along with the names of the Queensland players, just something very, very special, and I just felt so thankful that I was able to be part of it.
Graham Lowe's coaching career began far from Lang Park, Brisbane, in an Otahu Council Park, which is still full of memories.
When I come back here to Murphy Park, I'd like to think I'm still the same sort of person now, or same coach that I was back in 1973. Obviously the dollars and cents and media and things like that are a little different to say the least, but the principles involved, the communications and the belief in what you're doing, they are the important things to me, and I'd like to hope that they're still the same as what they were then.
The first time I run into Graham was, we was doing our pre-training stretches, sitting in the back of our A40 having cigarettes and telling jokes to each other, and this bloke walks up along the park and he's got this clipboard and this whistle and a hat and a brand new tracksuit and everything. We look at him and we're thinking, who the hell's this bloke? And next minute he comes up to the car and he says, I'm looking for the Otahu 8th grade, can you tell us where they are? And we says, we're it. And he sort of looked in the car and he says, well, I'll tell you something, you better go and get 13 more blokes for Thursday night. And we sort of looked at him, he says, what do you want 13 more? He said, because you blokes aren't playing.
I think he was just harder. It was always good value. He taught us a lot about football. He seemed to know what was going on. He appreciated what was happening on a football field, and he could relate to players. And the best thing about it all was that he treated people like you'd like to be treated.
Graham lived and worked at Otahu, and the Otahu Rugby League Club was the launching pad for the big things to come.
Well, I had this little auto electrical shop down the road from Otahu here. It was my club, in fact it still is, and when I think back now, many a day we used to sit there with a lot of the Otahu players, the juniors in those days, and think to what we'd do if we were professionals and how we could right the rugby league world or remedy all the problems it had at that stage, and we'd pick our own Kiwi sides, and that's really where the dream started, and in those early days did bring success, not only to me personally, but to the players, the likes of Mark Graham and Owen Wright and Promesy, etc. We all shared it together, and really that's where it all started.
Graham's dream of becoming a professional coach came true in 1979 when he went to Queensland to coach Norths in Brisbane. They had run last in 1978 and lost the majority of their contracted players. But in 1980, with a group of young hopefuls, Graham had provided the unbelievable, and Norths had made the Brisbane Grand Final.
Souths were the favourites that day, and they had Mel Meninga, a young Mel Meninga at that stage, just making his mark, and plenty of other good players, but they also relied heavily on their toughness, and so we set to with a plan that we tried to test that toughness, and we knew they'd eventually give a penalty away, and from that penalty we hoped to try and start some sort of little bit of set to, and I hope that would work in our advantage, and luckily we were able to settle down quicker than what Souths were and came up with a good try.
They've got him running at 6s and 8s at the moment to Henrik. He gets it away to Gorka, bounces across over there to Draper. Draper turns it back on to Dunn. The big fella's still going. He's over the quarter line. He's still going as Dunn. He got away to Henrik. He'll score. Henrik's in for the try.
Two teams locked together at the moment. Back over to Meninga. He's going to put the boot underneath it. Well, if Joe Kilroy likes the boot to come down at him, well, he's away. If he wants to have a bit of a run, here's the chance. Back into his own quarter, rather. Now turns
that game, probably more than any other, helped launch my coaching career and provided the opportunity for a few job offers, and also the one that came along eventually to coach the Kiwis and provide some of the best moments of my life.
Nice piece of work.
Well, the first test I had with the Kiwis was here at Carlisle Park, and was a soft underfoot on the day and a little bit grey just as it is today, but I always recall back to I was so nervous, wanting to do all the right things. I've never been involved with the Kiwis, never been a great player or anything, so I didn't really know what the whole experience was all about. But the first thing I recall was we got called out of the dressing rooms, and both teams, well, Australia was out there when we went out, and I came round here getting ready to sit up in my spot just down here, and unfortunately the area that had been reserved for us had all been sold off. Somehow there was a mix-up in the seats, and I just looked over from the gate, and Arthur Beetson was sitting where I was supposed to be, and I sort of looked down. He could tell there was no seats, and he said, "For Christ's sake, Lowe, don't sit next to me, mate, it's not going to look right." And I thought, oh geez, what a good start. So I had to come along. We had to shift a couple of old ladies along down here, and then the game got underway.
James Lowe, showing some of the speed he was famous for a few years ago. Ron O'Regan, almost at the line. Ron O'Regan, and the Kiwis starting to fire. Shane Varley flicks it out. Gordon Smith through Fred Arcoy. Dean Bell back to Arcoy. Can he do something with it? Smith. Looking every which way, but the Australian defence just holds.
Real pressure on the Aussies now.
Broadhurst puts it on. Nice pass to Mark Graham. Nicely out to Kurt Sorensen. James Lowe scores the try.
Things were going well for us, and I felt that we were making more breaks than what Australia was making, and we were looking very positive. But the game sort of turned against us when we made a break down the far side of the field, and then came back this side and we dropped it.
As normal, whenever you make a mistake against Australia, they immediately capitalise on it, and sure enough, from the next play the ball, giant winger Eric Growth just took the ball straight off the ruck area and went through some feeble defence and scored under the post at the other end.
There's a try. That's a runaway try to the big Australian winger, Eric Growth.
Sort of turned against us, but even though we went down, I still come away from this ground with a very, very positive feeling.
That feeling stayed with the Kiwis as they took on Australia at Lane Park.
Oh, and mishandled quickly by Australia. Colin Scott, obviously a case of the nerves.
Kurt and Dane Sorensen, you know, they were just... Kurt put on a couple of tackles in the early part of that game there that shook the blooming grandstands. He hurt them so much, and while we did concede penalties, we were willing to do that because we felt that it was going to work to our advantage. There was one incident involving a tackle where little Shane Varley, who couldn't dent a grape, accidentally trod on Ray Price's ankle. Ray Price responded by stomping on Gary Prome's calf. Shane then showed his boxing skills, but no damage was caused except that we got the penalty. Promesy got a sore leg out of it, but it was worth it because we got 2 points.
A controversial selection for that test was Auckland fullback Nicky Wright. Graham had always had faith in Wright, and yet again a player repaid the coach's loyalty.
Well, there it goes. He's made sure, and he gets the points too. So
It wasn't only his kicking, it was his general all-round play, and one tackle in particular that Mal Meninga made a run down the far side touchline, and it looked like 4 points for certain coming up at least, and Dean Bell was chasing him. Dean may have been able to catch him, but Mel, being such a strong guy, was going to be a big ask. But Nicky just came out of nowhere. He just came out of nowhere and absolutely creamed Meninga, and I don't know what went on, but all I know, there was 2 Kiwis going into the tackle, 1 Aussie with the ball. Kiwis got up smiling, Mel got up, out, the ball had to be put into a scrum, and Mel had a blood nose, so I don't know what went on in it, but it worked for us anyway.
After a strong half-time talk, to make sure the players weren't going to rely on their 9-6 advantage, the Kiwis piled on more pressure with 2 brilliant tries and absolutely dominated the second half.
And New Zealand will be in, no doubt about it. Oh, what a great try from Lowe. And Graham Lowe delighting, about 14 metres out from Australia, and New Zealand looking good. Good tackle, Ella. Broadhurst, Varley, out for Kurt Sorensen, a ball off for Rapani, and Rapani's in! Oh, I don't believe it! What a great ball! And look at the New Zealanders! They have gone mad here!
After a late try by Australia, New Zealand led 19-12, and a dream was about to come true.
Graham Lowe looking at the clock. Don't forget the famous countdown here at Lang Park. The big clock counts down the last 10 seconds of play. Here's the countdown now. We're in the last 2 seconds, and this is an historic win for New Zealand. 19-12, and there's the count.
There was a lot of tension in that game, and you know, so much so that I actually was grinding my teeth, and all of a sudden I realised I'd ground a couple so hard the back couple of my teeth actually broke off on the side, and you know, just so it's like it's only a game, but well, it's supposed to be only a game, but I was wound up, but I was doing damage to myself. But the players were just magnificent, and New Zealand, I think, had one of its proudest moments ever to remember in sport, because I don't think the Australians have been beaten since 1971. I think everybody coaches in a different way, but you know, you shouldn't probably try and copy another's style. But my particular approach is I care for the players, and I'm always proud of them later on. I think that the memories that they give you are something that you can't buy. And I come back here to Carlo Park today, and I think back to those times and to that first year in particular when I had the privilege of coaching New Zealand. You know, I just love all those blokes, and I think that I owe them so much.
In 1984, Great Britain arrived in New Zealand, having been thumped 3-0 by Australia. But the Kiwis had never beaten the British 3-0 in a series and were still rated underdogs. However, it was obvious from the word go that this was a Kiwi side with a mission.
Howie Tamati through Varley, Kurt Sorensen. Oh, lovely pass to James Lowe, and he'll score right out of the post. Magnificent try.
And the thing that I remember most about the series was the finishing of James Lowe.
Breaking a gap, nicely outside of his James Lowe. Will they catch him? Lowe, right under the post.
Well, another thing that sticks in my mind is that after the second game down in Christchurch, I was approached by a number of the Great Britain officials, and they asked me if I would be available to coach Great Britain. I thought they were joking at the time, but they were deadly serious, and I must say that I was really tempted. I had one more year to go with the Kiwis, and I always had it in the back of my mind, but they did mention it to me once more after that when I was in Wigan. When I was coaching Wigan, I was approached just one other time, but I must admit I got a little bit of a buzz out of it.
The wall here, land move.
After winning the second test 28-12, the Kiwis returned to Carlo Park to try and complete a whitewash. This was to be the swan song of the much-admired Auckland halfback Shane Varley. Graham Lowe was about to make one of the most difficult decisions he'd face in his career.
Shane was struggling. He'd been knocked around quite a bit in the first 2 games, and he took a couple of heavy knocks in that last game. And sitting next to me, I had Clayton Friend. I knew that I had to make a decision for the team's sake, but I was trying to avoid it, trying to put it off. And I was watching Shane. I thought, sorry mate, I'm just going to have to do this to you, and I called him off. And I can still see him walking down the touchline here, and he looked me straight in the eye, and I thought he's going to give it to me here for sure, just because of the emotion that was involved in that last game. But being the champion that he is, he actually put out his hand and he said to me, thanks coach, great change, the team needed that. And it brought tears to my eyes because I know he meant it, and he's a team person, and he knew that the decision was made only because the team needed it. As it turned out, Clayton went on, and Clayton scored a couple of tries and turned the game for us. And that was probably one of the most memorable games that Clayton had for New Zealand.
The third test ended with a 32-16 win. Graham Lowe and the Kiwis became national heroes.
When he first took over the Kiwis, we had good enough players to win games, but I don't think anyone really believed, or 80% of the players didn't really believe that they could win, and he just kept harping on about it in the way he'd get people up, even to go to dinner in the evening. You know, we'd have these great motivation sessions, and he had these neat, really good tapes from America and that about gridiron, and they all set to music and to poetry in the background. There's these massive great hits going on in the background and people's helmets flying off and the like, and it was a real charge up, and then you'd turn it off and say, right, I go to dinner, and you didn't feel like going to dinner, you feel like rushing out the door and doing a couple of laps or going out and tackling someone or going and playing football. So in the end we got him to show him to us just before we went to training, and training was, you know, we might have been doing it 100%, but it was 200% after that.
In 1985, the Kiwis met Australia again, this time in a 3-test series, the first of which was at Lang Park. New Zealand scored a couple of great tries.
Nash himself, tackled by Pitts. Olsen Filipano with the ball. Beautifully taken. Superb. Dean Bell in a gap. Trying to run round. Gary Jackson is there. Oh, Dean Bell clear to the line. Superb.
But it wasn't enough, and Australian John Rebo came up with the first of his match-winning tries that would haunt the Kiwis that series.
Who's being sent for Australia? It was 10
Unfortunately, the main talking point after the game was the stoush that Greg Dowling and Kevin Tamati were involved in after being both sent to the sin bin. It happened off the field and was certainly an ugly incident.
One imagines they'll be able to sort things out. Kevin Tamati hasn't lost his sense of humour, or has he? She's on again. Well, it was always going to be on between these two.
The second one was out here at Carlaw, and there was a huge crowd. It was a magnificent day, and our fellows just played exceptional. We did everything to win that game. We had movements pulled back for various reasons that could have resulted in tries, and we actually hung on to a lead right till the dying stages of the game, and then in the last minute or so we made a mistake. Well, I felt selfishly sick and down. I went back into the dressing room, and the players were all, you know, the state of depression was something I'd never ever seen before, and we all felt that we'd done everything. We all felt everyone had put in 100%, and we couldn't understand why we'd lost. And it wasn't until later in the week that, you know, I finally woke up to myself and started to realise that, you know, just because you put in 100%, it doesn't give you the right to win. Putting in 100% only gives you the opportunity to win.
Recovering from his own distress, Graham then set about producing one of his miracles and setting his men up for the battle of the third test.
It's a bloody tragedy. So we must wonder how in football we call a game. But it is a game. Don't only look at the pictures, listen to the words.
We came as young, untested men from schools across the land, and stepped from buses with our bags and soaring hopes in hand. Then on the muscle-sapping sun, we fought for spots that would be won. And sometimes scrimmage tension raised, sprang like a manic tiger caged, unleashed itself in hate. Our number dwindled ever lower as playbooks were called in. For the goal was to find the best 40 men, the 40 who could win. Then one day, it was just me and you other 39 who charged out to challenge all comers, for we thought we were the top of the line. But making the team is one thing, while becoming a team is another.
Is that right? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Forget the numbers, forget the games. That is the most important thing, isn't it? We've become a team, but can we stay a team? We trained out at Fowles Park, and I said to the players, you know, I was I knew, I said, look, I know you're going to win. I just know you're going to win. I can feel it. There was not even any doubt in anyone's mind that was involved with our team. We were, you know, dead certs for it, and, you know, it was just a straight mental thing.
And right up on attack again now, the Kiwis. McGann. Filipino with a chip through again. It'll work for him. Picks it up beautifully.
Magnificent pickup from Olsen Filipino. All we wanted was someone there offering. They should have learned from last week. They've got to follow Filipino.
Mark Graham back inside. Clayton Friend holds on to it.
Try to New Zealand.
They all played exceptional, and there was just no one you could leave out. And it's one of those years that just everything sticks in your mind. Everything seemed to work for us in that last game. We just tried to run Australia around, and it worked. And the feeling of togetherness, that's what it was. It was a feeling of togetherness. It was a feeling of teamwork. It was a feeling of time to repay the faith that had been shown them in them from the supporters.
Friend. Graham. Mark Graham has made a break. Looking for the pass inside to give it to him. Clayton Friend will finish it. Oh, what a super try. Clayton Friend. Graham. Looking to put the pass up to Kurt Sorensen coming through. On right. Lowe.
Australia being whitewashed by the superb New Zealand team. The chanting of Kiwi, Kiwi.
This side is capable of beating Australia, and certainly they have proved it.
That was a great team, but Olsen Filipino is the player who sticks out in my mind. He got the man of the series, and he was marking Wally Lewis, the great Wally Lewis at his peak, and Olsen outplayed him 3 games in a row.
Campbell trying to take it on the run. He didn't knock it on. Running it up. Dean Bell. Dean Bell against Rebo. Dean Bell for the line. Back inside. Tried to find Gary Prone. Olsen Filipino away now. Play on, says the referee, and Olsen Filipino will put it down onto the posts.
Wally has spoken to me about it since and said, you know, everywhere he looked, there was just the big figure of Olsen just pounding through, and he just inspired everybody.
Really starting to look dangerous.
The Test series later that year against the Pongs saw Mark Graham's courage, his ability and leadership put the man beyond doubt as one of New Zealand's greatest ever players, and certainly the finest I've ever coached. I don't remember the series being drawn. I remember the strength of Mark playing on badly injured when his country and team really needed him.
The captain, Mark Graham.
You have to realise that with Graham, you most probably did it as much for him as you did for your country. You say you were playing for New Zealand or whatever. He sort of showed you the values that were required, and you took it from there.
The atmosphere of the great Wembley Stadium enticed Graham to sign with English club side Wigan in 1986. But that wouldn't heal the scars left by that year's disastrous Kiwi tour of Australia and Papua New Guinea.
That loss in Papua New Guinea was certainly, you know, probably the low point in my career, and it certainly it finished off things on a you know, real sour note for me, and losing the job as Kiwi coach immediately on my return. That didn't help either, I suppose, but them sort of things happen, and you know, I was going to Wigan while I thought I was going to be coming back in the off-season and carrying on as Kiwi coach through till the end of the World Cup series. The New Zealand Rugby League didn't see it that way, so we parted company, and it really, you know, I suppose it goes to show that wherever one door shuts, another opens.
Going to the UK, I didn't really know anybody at all, and it was a very, very lonely experience. But in some ways, it was an experience that I think that actually helped me. It made me stronger, but I had to quickly establish my authority with the team. I had to try and gain respect with the players and become part of that society over there.
After winning 4 out of 5 trophies in the first year, Graham's nerve was put to the test. He upset superstar Ellery Hanley by overlooking him for the captaincy.
What happened, Ellery sort of became pretty uncooperative at training. And I could see a major problem, and I knew I had to address it immediately. So, well, I actually left it the first night. I sort of ignored it. I ignored it the second night. And then the third day, we came along to training, and I tried to front Ellery about it. And he was pretty uncooperative to even talk to. I'd already named the side, so I felt there was only one step to take. And I called everyone in and I said, there's one change to the team. And I said, Ellery, you're dropped. And he said some remark to me. And I said, don't bother coming back either.
Some of the biggest names in the game have tried to take him, have taken him on and have lost. Ellery Hanley in England tried to do it and stand up to him. Andy Gregory, also at the same club, Wigan. He just made it very clear to them that if they didn't want to row in the same direction as the Graham Lowe and Wigan boat was going, that they could hop off and try and find another club. Nobody really does get away with it. He just lays down the law, put it down to Lowe's law, and it wins.
Ellery and I are both hard-nosed, but after about 4 weeks I was probably thinking a bit more rationally, and I gave Ellery a call. After some tough talking by both of us, we shook hands and never mentioned it again. By early next season, Ellery would be captain of Wigan, but in the meantime we faced Halifax in the 1988 Challenge Cup final.
In just his second year in Britain, Graham Lowe and Wigan had made it to the country's ultimate rugby league final, the Challenge Cup at Wembley. New Zealand had lost their super coach, but he had already conquered England.
Tremendous burst by young Edwards. I know himself now then, this boy certainly got the size and he's over. Well,
Kiwi centre Kevin Ero had joined Graham in the 1987 season, but he hadn't come without strings attached.
Right at the last minute, he said to me, what about my brother? Can you give him a game? And I said, what's his name? And he said, Tony. And I said, oh, listen, mate, we only really want you. And I felt, I had that, like, Kevin's a very, very persuasive fellow, Kevin, and luckily for him, I'm lucky, I just feel fortunate now that he was persuasive. But anyhow, I said to him, well, how much experience has he had? And Kevin said, well, he's 1 year older than me. And I said, well, how many, what's he like? And he said, he's played twice. And I said, oh, you're bloody kidding, aren't you, mate? And he said, oh, he's a better player. I think that he's a better player than I am.
As they say, the rest is history. Lowe trusted his gut feelings and signed both brothers. They were devastating, helping Wigan to a 1988 title, toppling Halifax 32-12.
Is necessary at this stage. He's a rough, rumbustious forward who might shake one or two of this Wigan side. But look at Lydon go here, reminiscent of those 2 great tries when he won the Lance Todd. He's got Hanley inside him.
Other Wigan stars like Ellery Hanley had their moments, but the Ero brothers' first trip to Wembley resulted in 3 tries.
Kevin and Tony got different personalities altogether. Kevin is a very focused person. He knows exactly what he wants. He's hard-nosed, and he's successful. He's just got so much ahead of him. It's he's going to be one of the greats of the game without any doubt. He already is. Tony is Tony's a more easygoing sort of fellow. He's just as good a player. He's bigger than Kevin is. But when you combine the pair of them, they're just deadly.
In 1989, Wigan, wearing their alternative blue and white hoops, defended their title against St Helens.
Edwards to Platt. That's a good ball to Hampson. Oh, this is good rugby, Bell. This is copybook stuff. He's got, oh, why didn't he pass? Well, he's no need to. He scored himself.
In the town of Wigan, he was a hero. Graham Lowe was on top of the rugby league world. He'd coached the best players in New Zealand and England. Next would come Australia. Not wanting to be separated from his daughters in Brisbane any longer, Lowe looked set to return down under. With his record, he was being chased by a number of big Sydney clubs. The Manly Warringah Sea Eagles got the nod.
Changed everything, and he ruffled a few feathers, really. And I think a lot of coaches coming into the situation he was coming into would have done so and met with a brick wall sort of response. But he was given a lot of latitude when he arrived, and he really sort of took everything by the scruff of the neck, and you know, didn't sort of dilly-dally at all right from the word go. He wasn't in a situation where he wanted to sort of make friends or you know, introduce things slowly. He came to the club with certain ideas. This is the way it was going to be done, and he's implemented those ideas, and they were effective right from the start. He hasn't sort of taken time to implement them. Things like players travelling to and from games in a bus together, strict dress regulations for all players, collar and tie to games. The fact that we all had to go back to the club and be seen and be accountable to our spectators. You know, little things like that, but you know, training, regimenting the players to a certain way of training, being ready, if we trained at 5 o'clock, being ready at 4:45 on the paddock, doing their own warm-up. So when 5 o'clock started, well, we started, and there was no sort of messing around at all. That sort of discipline he installed in the club right from the word go.
Wherever he goes, he's the boss, and he lets everybody know, not just the players, he lets the fans, and more importantly, the officials know that he's there. If you want him in the club, you've got to abide by his decisions, and if you like, he's a coach, a captain, chairman of the supporters club, and general manager, chief executive of the club, all rolled into one.
I want to be boss. I won't have anyone else being boss, and it's got to be done the way I want to do it. Otherwise, I'll stamp my feet up and down. And they accepted it.
Manly also accepted Lowe's decision to appoint the brilliant rugby union convert Michael O'Connor as team captain.
He's a naturally gifted runner of the ball, and his poetry in motion when you watch him in full flight, he's what people come along and pay the money for. He's the sort of guy that draws the crowds, and he's a perfect captain for me. A captain needs to be many, many things. One of the things he does have to do is try and ensure the game plan that you want to use is carried out. He's got to ensure that the lines of discipline, the standards of behaviour are adhered to, and as long as Michael plays, he will remain captain of my side.
But before Manly had started the competition, the new coach was in hospital and seriously ill.
It only took them 5 minutes, and they diagnosed it as the majority of the veins in my left leg were clotted. All of a sudden, my whole life was turned upside down because my approach to life, the way I live generally, everything had to change. And it had to change, otherwise I wasn't going to live. It was as simple as that.
When you see a bloke as ill as he was, and how unfortunate it was, to persist and not give up, that can't do anything but lift players and lift people. You want to play for Graham. That's the effect he has, and not just because of his illness, but that's the effect. That's a person Graham Lowe is.
In May 1990, Graham was a surprise spectator at the All Black trials. He was looking for a utility back for Manly, and one player in particular held his interest.
I put a call through to Lloyd Drake and told him, you know, that we were looking for an outside back and could he keep his eyes open, and I never thought much more of it. And then just one day, one evening out of the blue, Lloyd rang me up and he said, listen, I've got a fellow over here that I think you should have a close look at. His name is Matthew Ridge.
Matthew Ridge was a second-string All Black. He was denied the #1 fullback job by John Gallagher, and the presence of brilliant goal kicker Grant Fox denied him a chance to show off his kicking abilities or make the first team.
I then got a couple of videotapes of Auckland in various games, and while it's difficult to pick up the qualities of a fullback role as in Union as compared to rugby league, it immediately became apparent to me that Matthew, he was lively, he was enthusiastic, he was the sort of player who, given half a chance, would play 3 or 4 positions at once, and he was brave. So
I had to go, put a call through to him one night and said to him that, you know, would he like to play rugby league, and he sounded very positive over the phone, and you know, I was impressed with everything he said to me. He was a determined bloke, very sure of himself, I suppose, cocky, more the word, I suppose, but he knew what he wanted. He knew it was going to be difficult. He was under no illusions at all on how hard it was going to be. But in saying that, he was also sure that he could make it.
Matthew settled into rugby league and Manly. Under Graham Lowe's guidance, he became one of the most successful rugby union converts ever. Matthew mesmerised the Aussie public with his kicking, and despite starting the season as rank outsiders to make the semi-finals, Manly broke into the last 5, meeting Balmain in the first semi.
O'Donnell throws a dummy. No one in.
After beating Balmain, we were up against the Brisbane Broncos in the second semi-final. We'd been playing well, but a fired-up Broncos side simply out-muscled us on the day with strong-arm tactics.
Hit over the top by Miles. Now there was a big swinging arm on that tackle. 2 minutes to go. Madison got a pass for Jackson. Jackson's in the clear. Jackson will score. Jackson's in for the Broncos. Is he excited or is he excited? The Broncos score. That'll win the game. Manly go fishing.
We'd lost, we were disappointed, but all of us knew that it wasn't a flash in the pan, and come 1991, we'd be able to strike back.
Manly's greatest battles of the 1991 season would come against the brilliant talent from Canberra. In the first round, Manly did it easy, winning 46-12.
Lyons holds it up for Tuvey. Tuvey looking for support, gets it away to O'Connor. O'Connor steps through one tackle, and O'Connor comes around to score the try. Great hands once more from Manly.
On Manly. Manly's got the speed down the flanks to cover kicks like that.
They swing it wide here. Quickly it goes out to Iro, standing in the centres. Inside is Hassler. Hassler coming through to Belcher. Gets it out to O'Connor. He hangs on to it. Pushes away. David Ronson for the line. Chased by Wood. He got there.
Yes, Ronson got there, but so did Graham Lowe. Just 8 weeks earlier, he'd collapsed with a brain hemorrhage. Though told to take 6 months off, the day Graham was released from hospital, he visited Manly. And while he did all the talking, he also found in those guys the motivation to keep going. The feeling was obviously mutual.
When Graham was sick, the side was sick, you know. When he wasn't around us, we weren't performing, and whether that was coincidental, I think not. I think that he genuinely does have exert a big influence over the side, or the sides that he coaches, and noticeably this year when he got sick, we didn't perform well pre-season. When he was sick last year, also the same sort of thing happened. And then when he was away for the State of Origin games this year, well, Manly suffered. So I don't think it's any coincidence that when Graham's not around, constantly monitoring what's going on and talking to players, motivating them and keeping them on that right frequency, the side suffers.
Our best performance, in my eyes, was we were beaten in the game against Canberra 14-13. But we had a whole lot of injury problems and the players stuck together. We were pegged by a point in the end. To me, that'd be the most memorable game, even though we did lose.
Ian Roberts himself gave me plenty to remember. His comebacks after serious injuries inspired us all.
Roberts again. This time it's Coyne. He's trying to lift his side. You want to talk about some emotion here. Look out, Gary Coyne. Good night. Lyons. Back for Roberts. He's been everything. In everything, I should say. Now Reg. Jones. In front of the post on the last, and they're 10 metres out. Lyons. Field goal time. Kick through in the play of the ball. Now Walters. Good hands from Daly to Belcher. To Stewart. Flicking. Looking to bring somebody in. Martin. He left Hancock standing. There's the first try.
Sometimes you sit there and you feel like you are conducting an orchestra, I suppose. In other ways, you feel helpless. Sometimes you think, gee whiz, you know, they look uncoached. or sometimes you think, gee, I'm really proud of them. But whatever it is, you get all the feelings. You get every single emotion that's possible. You get sitting on the sideline, I believe, and it's just part of the reason why I do the job. The one word that describes what I feel like sitting on the sideline watching a game is probably proud.
Cliff Lyons, the captain. Big boots to fill.
Graham would have reason to be proud of his injury-ridden Manly side, who met the Raiders in the semi-final with no one giving them a chance.
It makes you wonder what you've done to deserve such bad luck, but that's the way it goes. I think off the top of my head, we had Tony Iro out with a knee reconstruction, Hasler out with a knee reconstruction, O'Connor out with a calf strain, Ian Roberts out with a medial ligament, David O'Donnell out with a medial ligament, David Lydiard out with a shoulder reconstruction, plus a host of others. I can't remember, they're just the ones off the top of my head. So it didn't look too good, but the thing is about rugby league is the same as anything. You win with what's available. You don't win with what is not available, and that's the approach that we had to take into the game.
This was do or die for Graham Lowe and his Manly Sea Eagles. They had to beat the Raiders in their semi-final to keep premiership hopes alive.
Manly arguing that Stewart's tackle was high. Tuvey stays down injured.
It was certainly not helped by the fact of losing Jeff Tuvey just in the first 5 minutes, I suppose, of the game. He got a knock in his eye, and he had to come off, and that was it was a devastating blow for us, because all our game plan was basically revolving around Tuvey and Lyons. They were like the steering wheel of our ship, and all of a sudden we only had one there.
Lyons again. Ball was forward. It looked to Jones. He can't reach out.
If we were going to go down, we were going to go down with all guns blazing. Or what guns we had. We only had some little pop guns by that stage, but they would certainly be popping away, and probably not right of me to think this way, but I did feel very, very confident, without trying to tempt fate. I did feel very, very confident that we'd actually win the game. And obviously everybody tipped against us, didn't give us any chance whatsoever. But we went out and the guys played the games of their lives.
Stokes working with Iro! Tuvey, he got to the outside, it had to happen. But that is just how he likes them. Jail. Now he's got support, shows it. Now, Iro again kicks ahead. Belcher and Iro! Who got there? Daly on the last, they keep it alive. Belcher under the post. Ridge, no time, under the dot. Manly down their own end.
Yeah, a lot better. When the ball movement's not working, they've got a good forward play.
Here they go, Iro. He's got Stokes. He doesn't need him at the moment. Here comes Meninga. Back to Stokes. What a try. Oh, what a try. This semi-final is on the line for anyone. Last tackle, Meninga. Stewart. One more. They've got numbers. Canberra, too many. Belcher. Back to Daly. They've still got numbers. Back it comes for Coyne. Desperate for Manly. Coyne a double. I didn't think it would ever come.
And I would just spent the whole time going round and round the team saying, come on fellas, you can do it, just come on, just go out, this is the last 40 minutes, just go out and play as you've been playing and enjoy it, just enjoy it. And there was no big strategy or anything like that, it was just get back out there and enjoy it. And I did notice out of the corner of my eye that Martin Bella, once he'd sat down and the bleeding had started occurring again in his hip, because he had this very, very bad hip injury, I knew that he was, it was basically going to be impossible for him to carry on. But he's such a strong person, got such a big heart. He said, no, I'm okay, and but he was really limping badly. So we got everybody up and patched them all up again and sent them out, and we really look forward to that last 40 minutes.
Bruised and battered, Manly fought back, but there was no way anyone was going to catch Mark Bell.
Bell gets clear. Can they catch him? Iro's chasing. Hancock's chasing. Hancock's flying, but too late. As simple as that. But what a chase. The scoreline
10 minutes into the second half, Martin Bella could no longer take the battering on that injured hip.
You're always, you know, very, very disappointed when you've got to come off, I think. I mean, I pride myself on being able to go the distance and still be going hard when it's finished. But, you know, there were just too many of our guys that were too knocked around, but full credit to the guys that replaced us. You know, if a couple of things had have gone our way, you know, that quite well could have been our game then.
Last tackle.
But the Canberra Raiders, and Gary Coyne in particular, seemed to be on a roll. Suddenly, the match looked to be slipping away from the Sea Eagles.
Does it for Coyne. Coyne, hat-trick. Gary Coyne gets up beaming. A hat-trick.
The question for Manly isn't whether they're capable of
But
scoring
Lowe's
a try.
boys
They're
weren't
such a good
giving
side.
up, and
They
5
can
minutes
score
later,
tries. It's a matter
they
of
were
whether
back
they
in the
believe they
game.
can score a try and go on and win the game.
Williams gets it to Ronson. Ronson gets it back to Williams. Williams to Cunningham. They've got it. And it will be 6 points. I tell you what, that reserve bench might have to be warmed up again. Forget about the ice.
Manly's euphoria was
The
short-lived.
Sea Eagles are not finished.
Unfortunately, we had a try disallowed at a crucial time there that could have had a big bearing on the result, but it's a sort of thing that you do have to accept because the referees are under a lot of pressure, and any mistake they make is obviously well documented and highlighted, but it's no compensation though, and it doesn't give you any comfort to know that sort of thing. But it was basically a 6 points that we dipped out on.
Williams has Iro. Iro couldn't get there. Hancock does. Oh no, he's got it for going forward.
If anything should have happened from that particular movement, the referee says that the ball went forward. Well, I don't think it did, and I don't think anyone at the ground other than the ref thought it did as well. But if there was anything other than a try that should have come from it, well, we should have possibly been awarded a penalty because Kevin Iro was tackled without the ball. But, you know, those decisions, that's decisions the referees make. They do and can have a dramatic effect on the game, but I believe you've just got to accept them in the spirit of the game.
This is unbelievable defence by Canberra.
Manly were determined to strike back, and Matthew Ridge led the charge.
The pressure on, and I'd be very surprised if Canberra don't crack in the near future.
Now Ridge takes it 10 metres out. He put his head down, believed in himself. Lions, Iro, there it is. Yeah, they cracked. Oh, what a semi-final finish coming up.
Matthew is, without doubt, in my opinion, the #1 fullback in the world, and but he's not a very big fellow, Matthew. But I think he forgot his size. I think he thought he was Martin Bella for a while. He put the ball under his wing and put it into turbo, and he took off straight at them.
The game's biggest controversy would come in the dying minutes as John Jones was penalised for lying on the ground when he appeared to be injured.
The score in the end was unfortunate. You know, being penalised from John Jones being on the ground as he was, and then obviously being injured, seemed unfair. It was cruel. But that's what sport's all about. You know, everything's good when things are going well for you. It's good, but you got to understand and accept that things won't always go well.
A lot of people are going to call it a harsh penalty.
The referee allowed play to restart, and Canberra scored before the injured Jones could leave the field or his replacement could get onto the park.
Quick tap. Coyne gets 4. Gary Coyne gets 4. That's it. It's over. While everybody was standing around, Mal Meninga took a quick tap. The Raiders are back again. The backs were turned on the MMI replay. They all walked away. Graham Lowe's Manly side have not let him down. He could not be any prouder. The Raiders will continue to proudly defend the Winfield Cup.
The year was over for the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. Graham Lowe was heartbroken.
Well, you just feel sorry for everyone, I suppose. You know, there's nothing you can do, and you just feel sorry.
It was the end of the toughest year of his life, a year when many people would have just given up.
Probably if I had a dream and something that I hoped could happen, I just hope that I've always got the energy to fight off any feeling that you might have at different stages to give up, you know, whether they be through things not going the way you want them or you know, health-wise or anything. You know, it's easy to spit the dummy out sometimes and just sit back and put your feet up, and having the energy and that great feeling when you open up the blinds every morning and looking outside and seeing a sky and knowing it's a new day coming. The energy to look forward to that day and to complete the day, that's all I look forward to.
So what makes a man who was once an Otahu auto electrician into a world beater? Why is Graham Lowe admired like no other coach and regarded as the game's master motivator by those who've been closest to him?
He knows how to treat people, and that's what it all comes down to. It's a people thing. And
Graham can make an average player think he's a good player. And again, a good player think he's a great player, and a great player think he's unbeatable.
He's really been responsible for internationalising the game of rugby league, I believe, and lifting its image over the last decade.
He's a bloke that I think is one of the best managers of people I've ever run across. I think there's quite a ruthless side to him, but you know, he's found that quite an effective sort of weapon. The one thing he's done, which most people can't do, is temper that and use it when it's got to be used, and only then.
This guy loves the game of rugby league and the people in it.
And there are those who just love the man, like the Manly fan who summed up Lowe's year in this poem.
We watched as he buried his face in his hands, but sat straight as still in his chair, for it hurt to look out at his pain-ridden team and think of the misery there, the pain and the misery there. He is proud, justly proud of the way you performed, for you felt so sorry, so sad, praised loudly your character, spirit and heart. You tried hard. What a game you all had, a magnificent game you all had. He was ill, really ill, but he came to North Head, watched you train, further illness he braved, and the way you responded meant so much to him. He considers his life you have saved, so cheered by the way you behaved. You've touched part of his life now in some special way. Ours too, be it finish or start. Not a team has your courage. You've won the big prize. Your supporters. You've captured our hearts, our love, our devotion, our hearts. Shed tears for them? No tears. All detractors put to rest. The Eagle's motto now should read, the good, the better, best.
The more you look into the man's life, the more you realise that he hasn't learnt this special gift. Graham Lowe was born with it, and we haven't seen the last of it yet.